Greetings, the guests of Wall Street Green Digital. And next, we hear from Dr. Bo Bai with a presentation about decarbonization investment opportunities in Asia. Dr. Bo Bai is a chairman and founder of Asia Green Fund, AGF, and Metaverse Green Exchange. From 2009 to 2016, Dr. Bai worked for Warburg Pincus. As a partner and managing director, he led its investments in the energy, industrials, and business services sectors in Asia. Previously, he worked at First Reserve Corporation and Goldman Sachs. Dr. Bai is a chairman of East Low Carbon and director of Capital Heating, Four Rivers, Huitonga, Ellison, Biowing Gases, Hosjoy, Low Carbon Environment, and AI Park. Dr. Bai holds bachelor's and master's in sciences in physics from the University of Science and Technology of China, a certificate from the Sloan School of Management at MIT, in the financial technology option, and PhD in physics from MIT. AGF is an emerging impact private equity firm, currently directly co-manages 15 billion yuan, or about $2 billion assets under management in China. AGF has been rewarded as one of the most influential private equity funds, as well as Dark Horse Fund for several times since its inception. Dr. Bai is on the list of top 50 middle-aged investors and top 100 most popular investors for entrepreneurs. Welcome, Dr. Bai.
Thank you very much.
Can you please share your view on digital transformation of transportation, logistics sector, and more about your fund at the same time?
Sure. So we founded the company, Asia Green Fund, and also the MVGX Group in Singapore with one mission and a mission only. That is to combine the digital technology and the green technology to drive transformation of many traditional industries, to improve the efficiency, reduce cost, and then to add a competitive edge for many of the industries. By green technologies, we invest in a lot of technologies to drive energy efficiency, replacement with the renewable energy, as well as advanced materials to drive transformation. By digital technology, we are very focused on industrial metaverse, which is capturing the technology from high precision AI, artificial intelligence, as well as IoT and big data, edge computation, and so forth. From our efforts over the past 8 years in Asia, investing in some of the leading edge technology from China on both the digital and the green transformation side, as well as implementing some of those projects in Southeast Asia, we found the industry is very much ready for such a transformation, because increasingly many of the business owners and senior executives of Asia seeing the digital and the green transformation are absolutely critical to their future success, to build their future competitive advantages. And then by combining the technology investment in the green, by combining that efforts in the digital side, we're driving many of those changes, which I'll be very happy to elaborate as we continue this dialogue in transportation, in manufacturing for petrochemicals, in energy efficiency for buildings, and then even in various other sectors for logistics and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you shed some lights on your view on the latest development of green hydrogen industry? Perhaps you can go through China, Europe, US, what's happening in Japan. We'll be very, very happy to hear your views.
Okay, indeed. And as we all move from the efforts to drive renewable energy, green hydrogen will play a very critical role, because hydrogen is a very interesting building block of many things, not only just for energy, but as importantly for chemicals. Mm-hmm. The old way of producing hydrogen, as you know, are coming from the exhaust gas and then on-site generation for the chemical industries. But as we increasingly utilizing renewable energy from wind, solar to manufacture that to generate hydrogen for transportation purposes is becoming very interesting. Let me start with some anecdote. One of the largest projects right now in the world is manufacture green hydrogen from a solar power and other renewable energy in Saudi Arabia. This is a very big project by Aqua and ThyssenKrupp and so forth. The hydrogen, as you know, is not easy to transport. So what they're really doing is convert hydrogen to ammonia and hence generate green ammonia using green ammonia as the intermediary to transport from Middle East to European Union. What are we doing here is very fundamentally interesting because suddenly green hydrogen and its transportation intermediary ammonia becomes the intersection of three sectors: the energy industry, the agriculture industry, and even the defense industry. Why do I say so? When you transport hydrogen or ammonia from one continent to another continent, the ammonia can go different pathway. Number one, it can be broken down into hydrogen again, and that hydrogen can be utilized for trucks, cars, for green hydrogen transportation. This is renewable energy industry to replace fuel. Number two, ammonia is a natural existing trade for fertilizer, as we are all aware, and then that is critical in many parts of the world for production of a steady ammonia, and then particularly green ammonia. Third, ammonia is also a feedstock for making dynamites. So if you think about the whole hydrogen as an ammonia as an intermediary of transportation, it becomes very interesting. Lastly, let me add, particularly from Asia's context, that we see increasing importance of this is how hydrogen gets impact traditional industrial manufacturing, particularly steel sector, and also transportation sector. Asia, China, Japan, Korea and India are some of the largest steel manufacturers in the world by far. And as you know, steel is very, very emission intensive. And then that whole process of replacing the older furnace with the more electric arc process, as well as addition of hydrogen into the process to make them more sustainable, are critical. And hence, hydrogen trade will become a very important trade in Asia Pacific. And at the same time, given hydrogen is not convenient to transport, the intermediary is becoming important. You transport in the format of ammonia, you transport in the format of methanol, which can be utilized further to decarbonize the maritime transportation. As we can see, many of the largest shipbuilders are building green methanol ships as we speak, with a smaller percentage building green ammonia ships. So the hydrogen value chain is a very strange and interesting way to intersect three sectors and then also become a connector with the continents across different parts of the world.
That sounds great. Could you elaborate more about, for example, China's efforts on green hydrogen versus Japan, South Korea? If you can go more in detail about that.
Sure. Let me start with the implementation usage and then come back to the supply. The usage of hydrogen in China, Japan, Korea are pretty abundant initially as part of the whole chemical manufacturing processes. So they're generally a standard components in the industrial chemical parks and also in addition to the steel. So I think China's demand consumption of hydrogen is pretty substantial compared to Japan and Korea. However, on the supply side, Japanese really initiated wonderful technologies for the hydrogen manufacturing. This is why you can see how particularly the fuel cell, the membrane technologies that Japan developed for transportation purpose is absolutely some of the leading efforts globally. And then this is why, as we speak, there's a strong competition in Asian countries, in China, Korea, and Japan, to develop the commercial scale next generation hydrogen electrolyzer. This is particularly important to make them energy efficient, because despite you can use all the solar power and wind power, which is increasingly grid parity, but they're still not cheap. The electrolyzer needs to be cost effective. And then to be cost effective, there are two parts very critical. One is the technology advancement, for which I think Japan and the US and Korea are very strong, and then Chinese are catching up. Two is the ability to mass manufacture. And then that ability, that stomach to tolerate the risk to develop the product, Chinese entrepreneurs and enterprises have a lot of appetite. So I think the competition is still on in terms of how to develop the most steady, low cost electrolyzer to generate hydrogen, particularly green hydrogen from renewable energy power. I may just add one very last point, which is very critical for places like where I'm in today, Dubai or Middle East. In this part of the world, where there is abundance of land, which is important to have solar power, and abundance of sunlight, and then generating green hydrogen, and then selling hydrogen in the format of ammonia or methanol to European Union or US or Asia market makes absolute sense. If you think about it, this is essentially a newer generation of exporting of energy. But this region is short of water, and hence the efforts to desalinate seawater to make a pure water and use the electricity coming from renewable energy, and then use the electrolyzer to generate green hydrogen and make ammonia, this whole process is expensive. If, to the extent possible, step by step, we're able to utilize the seawater directly to do electrolysis. So think about the day that you have renewable energy power with seawater directly get into green hydrogen, green ammonia, and then transport them out. So I think that will be super important for the long-term transportation and the development of a hydrogen industry. And that requires technology investment and then development, particularly membrane technology that can capture that. And then for that, we have been investing, cultivating, and then further R&D for ionic membrane, exchange membrane, AEM, to try to reach that holy grail of green hydrogen through seawater and renewable energy power.
I have a question about desalination. What about the biodiversity concerns associated with desalination? The reason I'm asking, I just actually written a study which I presented in Almaty, Kazakhstan, about the green hydrogen water food nexus. And they are currently working on a huge project that will cost about 50 billion and will be based on the desalination of the Caspian Sea. But at the same time, there is a lot of biodiversity concerns because their efforts to produce green hydrogen and get into the hydrogen economy directly contradicts all the involvement in all these biodiversity conventions. Because as you probably know, desalination, even if it's effective, it can kill insects, fish. So it will affect the food sector, the fisheries and the economies. What do you think about that?
Venera, that's a very, very good comment. This is why I said the holy grail of green hydrogen is to do the electrolysis directly from seawater without going through the desalination process. I'm 100% with you. I've been in the renewable energy industry for 25 years. The desalination process, we are becoming more and more energy efficient. Unfortunately, given the process itself, given some of the heat and then some of the exhaust come out of it, its impact to the fishery its impact to the biodiversity, is a problem I do not see a pathway to cure. It's going to be there for all the desalination plan, despite all the technology advancement. This is why, in my view, for the longer term, 10, 20 years horizon, we really need to move on to green hydrogen without going through desalination process. This is why it's so important for the whole industry to identify the right membrane electrodes to make seawater electrolysis to hydrogen directly instead of a pure water desalination. Pure water electrolysis to hydrogen. So I'm 100% with you. My last comment, since you mentioned it, in many locations, such as UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, that has abundance of land and resources of solar, and then for many places like one area we are working on deeply is also Kazakhstan, where it has abundance of wind resources, but also benefiting from the distance to China's oversupply of wind turbines, because moving the wind turbines far away from the core manufacturing location is not easy. So we think places such as these locations have a tremendous opportunity to harvest the sun energy, the sunlight energy for all those green transformation. Frankly, if you look at all the energy sources, other than hydro and nuclear fission, every other energy coming from the nuclear fusion of the sunlight. All we are doing is just moving that nuclear fusion sunlight energy across time or across space. Within the continent, when you move coal within the country, it's really moving sunlight energy millions of years ago within the same country. When you move oil and gas from Middle East to Africa, to Asia, it's moving the sunlight millions of years ago across continent. And then when we have the pure wind and solar power that move through electricity, through transmission, let's move the current sunlight fusion energy across the same country. However, when you come to the green hydrogen, it's very interestingly, it's moving the current sunlight energy in the format of green ammonia across continent. So this is why, it's kind of interesting to see how all this industry develop. But when we develop all this and then find the right way to preserve the biodiversity in the efforts of trying to reduce the global climate emission.
I was actually wondering. I created different type of policies for Japan based on my theoretical framework of Nexus integrated policies. I propose putting green hydrogen and pink hydrogen hubs in the future next to the wastewater plants, and using the unused territory effluents from the wastewater plants as the infinite supply of water. I will be happy to send you my research on the point. And actually, as I said, I went and created presented this in Kazakhstan 2 weeks ago. So I was specifically looking at all the biodiversity concerns using the environmental law and policy frameworks and trying to understand what they're trying to do. Because I'm a huge green hydrogen proponent. I'm a woman in green hydrogen. I have been writing about this for the last couple of years. So my answer is to use what we already have and create this sustainable circular economy framework, which I think we would really need to get to. But we have about 48 seconds. I'm sure we have been we could talk for 4 hours. But I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll be in touch. And please have a good trip to Dubai. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Venera. It's a pleasure to be invited here.
30 seconds.
Sure. Thank you, Venera. A great pleasure to be here today with the Wall Street Green panel. And my last word is, there is a will, there is a way. Digital green transformation is critical for many industries. I think a combination of a policymaker like you, an investor like us, and also the technology implementer, all these in combination, as well as do the proper measure reporting verification job, as many of the industry are doing, is important. And then we will be able to drive those decarbonization transportation of the industry. So thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you.